You know what? I actually got a DM from Danielle Bellelli. I think Danielle's in Sydney. Hey, Danielle. This week on Insta about this, where she wanted to bring up the topic of instructors taking holidays. And because we're largely a sort of a contractor and casual, industry, that it feels, technically you should be able to just call up and go, you know what, I'm not coming in tonight or next week because I'm on holiday. But
particularly if you're a contractor.
Right. I might come back in June or maybe not, I'll let you know, but that's not the culture. And that most instructors, I reckon from my experience, and this is what Danielle said as well, that feel kind of bad about taking time off. And even when it's booked in advance, they feel kind of bad about taking time off, let alone just going, you know what, I kind of need a mental health day today, or, I just need a couple of days to recharge or whatever. And so she wanted to know, like, what's the kind of ethics of taking time off?
Yeah, it's a really good one. And I think this loops in as well with having a sick day as well and things like that, and the horrendous guilt that instructors feel over that, and then the pressure they feel to find their own cover when they're crook. Like, I have literally been doubled over with gastro before, trying to get my shift covered. Gastro, like, what? So I think there's a few things that are going on here. I absolutely agree that it is part of the culture. I think it needs to change, and I think that that culture is actually quite toxic. Like, it's not okay. Like, there needs to be a shift, which will need to come from management, and it will also need to come from the instructors. Like, there's got to be a give and take, and I think a lot of it has arisen from contracting, and I think the amount of, and I'm just going to say it, there's a lot of sham contracting in the Pilates industry. So if you're unsure whether you are legitimately a contractor or not, it's super, super quick to find out. Jump onto the ATO,
or
type
if you're
in
a country that's not Australia.
Or if you're in a country that, yeah, good point. I don't know. I'm assuming in countries that are not Australia, you've still got some sort of, what is it, America? Is it the IRS?
So it's pretty similar in the US. I think that it's widespread in the industry that basically people are employed largely as contractors. And I just looked at an IBIS World survey recently that's, very recent data that said that's the case. And those that are not contractors are casual, by and large. There are very few people employed like permanent part-time, permanent full-time in this industry. But the thing is that, obviously I'm not a lawyer, but I'm fairly clear that if you're a contractor, the law is basically like to be a contractor, you've got to satisfy certain conditions. And that would be like, a contractor would be like the plumber, someone you'd get in to fix your electric circuit board or whatever at home. And it's like, so if you ring up Jim's Plumbing and you say, Jim, can you come over tomorrow? And then tomorrow Jim doesn't show up, it's John, right?
Jim's crook, so he's got John to come in.
Jim sent me instead. And you're like, I don't care. Jim, John, whoever, just fix the plumbing, right?
Correct. But in the Pilates studio, it rarely works like that. There are cases where you're a genuine contractor. And guys, by the way, get advice from the ATO in Australia, or whatever is the relevant taxation body in your country, and also your accountant, right? And you can get very clear advice. But what I was thinking, it's like there is times where you are genuinely a contractor. I'm thinking about the times where I used to go and do a corporate gig at lunchtime at an office, right? That was all off. There's no middleman, all off my own bat. If I was sick, absolutely, I could send someone else in for me, right? But when you work in a studio and you've got you're on the schedule, consistently, you've got classes on the schedule each week, et cetera, very rarely would a studio be happy with you just bringing in someone from outside.
Who are you? Oh, I'm Jane. Or where's Chloe? Oh, I'm here to teach. Chloe sent me instead. She didn't feel like working tonight.
Yeah.
You can imagine that scenario wouldn't go down.
It would not go down well at all. Not at all. So
I think there's a couple of other things with contractors. Like contractors generally supply their own tools. Like if the plumber comes, he brings his own tools, right? But
Raph, I carry 20 reformers around with me.
Contractors normally sort of supply their own uniforms and things, whereas if you work in a studio, they might have some kind of dress policy, like you've got to wear certain things or it's not okay to wear certain things, or that suggests that you're not a contractor.
I've worked at a lot of studios where I've had uniforms, but I've been paid as a contractor.
Yeah, if you're a contractor, the studio doesn't have any, they can't have a policy on leave or holidays or anything like that, because it's like contractors don't have holidays because the plumber. If the plumber wants to have a holiday on Christmas, he doesn't come ask me.
Yeah.
He just says, I'm not available over these times, call someone else or I'll come in January, So, whereas in a studio, that's not the case. And I think that comes back to this question from Danielle about taking leave. And I think I agree with you, it's got to come from both sides. But I think, in the spirit of radical candour, if I could give some advice to Danielle and the other folks out there who might have this as an issue, is I would approach the studio owner and I would do it in a time when there's no stress and pressure away from clients, and do it privately and say, hey, look, can I buy you coffee? What day is good for you? And then I'll just sit down and say, look, basically it's the same as the wage conversation, right? Chloe, I hope I love working at this studio, right? And I hope it shows that I love working at the studio. What I love about the studio are the culture. I love the way you talk to me. I love the clients. I love the people that work here, blah, blah, blah. I love all these things, right? And I hope it shows that I love working here because I always show up on time. I'm always cheerful. I always fill my classes, blah, blah, blah. Here are the things that I love, right? But there's something that, my needs are not quite being met in one area, and that is holidays, because I have family that live in XYZ state and I have birthdays and loved ones and things that I've got to go do, right? And so I need some time off to recharge, from time to time. And so, it's really not working for me basically not having any holidays, working 52 weeks a year. And so what would really make a big difference for me is if we could agree that I would take 4 weeks of annual leave, and we could negotiate on when that would be, at a time that would be a downtime for the studio, for example, where it would be the least inconvenient,
I jump in. I agree. I don't know that it necessarily has to be, though, when it's least inconvenient to the studio, because I think, again, that's I think you need to give notice of leave. I think you need to give as much notice as possible. I think that's really courteous. So if there's plenty of time to plan for that cover, then does it have to technically be at a time that's most convenient for the studio? I don't know. It
doesn't, but thinking with my studio owner hat on.
Yeah.
If I had, just say you're one of the most popular instructors at my studio and I love having you on the team and you're awesome and you always fill your classes and I'm like, Chloe's awesome, right? And then you come to me and you say what I just said to you, right? Except you say, and by the way, I want to take 4 weeks off in January every year, right? I'll be like, well, January is our absolute busiest time of year, Chloe, right? You know that we are flat chat in January, and that's when we get the most new clients, and if we make a good impression on those new clients, they become ongoing clients. And that's the time of year when I really need my top shelf instructors on, right? And if you're just absent for every January, that's going to leave a big hole in the team, right? So that effectively reduces how much I love having you on the team, because I'm like, oh, Chloe's awesome, but then there's this freaking thing every January where she disappears for a month when I most need her. So I think
give and take.
Well, I think it's got to be give and take, and I think we work in an industry that, we have to acknowledge that we work in an industry that when we work when other people are not working, right? That's, we work weekends and mornings and nights and whatever. And so I think, if I've observed this in some instructors, and I'm not suggesting for a second that this is what Danielle's, going through, but, I've just observed that, and in myself as well, as instructors get more senior and experienced, they start to become a bit more picky. It's like, I don't want to do Friday nights. I don't want to do Saturday mornings. I don't want to do the 6 a.m. starts anymore. Basically then it's like, I only want to work 9 to 5. And now it's like, I don't want to work public holidays. I don't want to, and so I think that instructors, if they go down that path, become less and less attractive as an employee, because you're like, okay, great, yeah, you're an awesome instructor, but you only work every fourth full moon, on a Tuesday sort of thing. So I think it's got to be give and take on both sides.
I used to love it when instructors took time off over Christmas because I would jump in and do all the covers. And it was fantastic. So when I was a contract group Pilates teacher, I used to hang out for Christmas because everyone else would go on holidays, and that's when I'd make my bulk of money. It was great.
Christmas is an awesome time to have off. You know, we were always super quiet between Christmas and New Year's. You had like minimal classes on, and just clients will take anyone. It's like they don't care who shows up to teach those classes. It was like, oh, it's, you know, we're all half drunk on, you know, eggnog or whatever.
It's a really fun time to teach. It's a really fun time to teach.
Yeah. So, all right. So, I mean, do you have anything to add to that? Basically, just a radically candid conversation with the employer is a good place to start, and set out, you know, the guidelines of what it is that you need, you know, as an employee, holiday-wise. Yeah.
I think I just really want to encourage more conversations across the board in the industry. Full stop. It's you know, I liken it to if you were in a corporate job, you wouldn't be hesitating to have these conversations, right? But it seems that we get all pent up about them in this industry. We get all uncomfortable about it. It becomes a hard conversation. And that, to me, is the culture that needs to change. We need to be able to openly talk about leave, talk about being sick. If you're crook, right? We need to be able to talk about, hey, am I genuinely a contractor or am I not? Let's talk about, like, it needs to be opened up. And I would love us to get to a point where we're not actually getting DMs about this because...
But don't stop sending us your DMs.
Don't stop sending us your DMs. But it just kind of, it does sadden me a little that it still seems to be such a difficult conversation in this industry to have. Yeah. And it just shouldn't be. Well, so hopefully this is helping change the culture. Yeah,
hopefully. And Danielle and anyone else, like, you know, the kind of get out of jail free card might be, you just might suggest your employer listens to this episode.
But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, of course you're entitled to holidays like anyone else. And also without holidays, you can't recharge. I mean, the first however many years that I taught, I didn't take a holiday. I didn't take a holiday for very long. I took a sporadic couple of days here and there, and that was probably just because I was really sick and run down. But actual time off, and you can't bring your best self. So you can't bring your best self to that studio, to your clients, if you haven't had a chance to recharge as well. So I would hope that employers would recognise that as well.
Yeah. What do you do to recharge?
I play with my kitten.
Everyone do a push-up.
Oh, we're doing push-ups now to kitten and cage line. There we go. There's another push-up. This is a fun game. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So have the convo. Don't be afraid to have the convo. And it's better out than in.
I reckon that's a good saying. Better out than in.
It's better out than in. I mean, because otherwise it's the elephant in the room, isn't it? Just say it. Just say it. There's nothing. It's such wasted energy to sit and stew on things.
I think that's another thing, like when, and it may be like something that comes up, I think, for a lot of people that they've brought to my attention is sometimes when we perceive a real sort of social pressure to do something a certain way, actually sometimes that's just an illusion. And when you actually bring it up with the person, like, oh no, I don't care if you do it that way, you know. And it was, sometimes we just kind of build this up into something that it's not, right?
Oh, we've totally worked. It can go both ways because we could have totally worked it up. Or that other person could really need to say something to you, but they haven't said it. Yeah. And it's like, life would be so much simpler if we just
say it.
Just say the thing.
Better out than in.
Better out than in. Better out than in. Yeah. Okay.